Mathematicians, it's Miss Johnson, and today we're going to be using this foldable to look at some multiplication of fraction word problems. If you don't have this foldable, that's okay. You can take notes in your notebook and you can write down the important information in the problem and then work the problem with us, okay? So there's different kinds of multiplication word problems when you're dealing with fractions. Today we're going to look at the normal kind of multiplication word problems where you have something that's repeating and you know how many times it repeats, so you're going to multiply to get the answer. For example, we went to the store, we bought 3 pounds of bananas, each pound cost 80 cents. So 80 cents for the first pound, 80 cents for the second pound, 80 cents for the third pound, so 80 cents times 3. Okay, so that's just a regular multiplication word problem. Okay, so let's take a look here. And I know this looks funny. I covered this up though because I accidentally, I had to start the video over. Okay, so I'm going to uncover that in a second. All right, so it says Mary practices 9/10 hour of piano each day for 5 days. How many hours of piano did she practice total? Okay, so when we think about a strip diagram, right, there's 5 days. On the first day, she did 9/10 hour. Second day, 9/10. Third day, 9/10. Fourth day, 9/10. And fifth day, 9/10. So we can see that our 9/10 repeats 5 times. So that is a multiplication situation. So we're going to say 9/10 times 5. And we know that when we do fractions, we have to multiply fractions. So we have to take that 5 and change it to 5 over 1. Then we're going to see if we can simplify, and we can. We look at our diagonals, remember? So we look at 9 and 1. Can't simplify that, but we can simplify the 5 and the 10. So we are going to divide by 5, divide by 5. I really don't want to write with this marker. Let's try this one. Okay, so 5 divided by 5 is 1. 10 divided by 5 is 2. So remember, we're just simplifying before we multiply. Okay, so here's we have a 9 at the top, a 2 at the bottom, and a 1 and a 1. So we're going to multiply straight across. So 9 times 1 is 9, and 2 times 1 is 2. And then we look to see if we can simplify. So 9 halves is improper, so we're going to do Nito, numerator in, denominator out. 2 goes into 9 4 times. 4 times 2 is 8. Subtract, we get 1. So our remainder becomes our numerator and our denominator stays the same. So she practiced for 4.5 hours. I don't know why I made it be there. Hours in 5 days. All right, let's look at the next one together. All right, it says Isaac bought 3/8 pounds of candy at the candy store. If the candy costs $4.99 per pound, how much did he spend? Okay, so cost this much for 1 pound. Well, he didn't even buy a pound. He only bought 3/8 pounds. But if he had bought, let's say he bought 5 pounds, right? So it would be $4.99 for the first pound, $4.99 for the second pound, $4.99 for the third pound. That would be multiplication, right? Well, it's the same thing for this. Even though it's less than a pound, we still have to multiply. So we have to do 3/8 times $4.99. How in the world are we going to do that? Well, when we do any kind of operations, we have to make it the same, right? So we can't multiply a fraction times a decimal. So we either have to change the fraction to a decimal or we have to change the decimal to a fraction. Okay, so it is a million times easier to change the fraction to a decimal than it is to do the other way around. So we're going to go ahead and say Nito, 3 divided by 8, and we are going to figure out what that is. Okay, so 8 goes into 30, 8, 16, 24, 3 times. So subtract 6, bring down my 0, 7 is 56. Subtract, we get 4, bring down the 0, and 5. Okay, so we're going to do, so 3/8 is equivalent to 375 thousandths. So we're going to do 375 thousandths times $4.99. Now that's going to, it's 3-digit by 3 digits, so that means it's going to be a lot of multiplication, right? So because that I know it's going to be long, I'm going to turn my foldable sideways so that I am able to fit all this multiplication on here, okay? So, and I hate that it's in the crease of the foldable. Oh well. Okay, so 9 times 5 is 45. 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33. Okay, put my place, that my 0 to hold my place for multiplying by that 9 already. I'm going to multiply by this 9. It's going to be the same, so I'm just going to copy it. It's going to be the same as when I multiply by this 9. Okay, now I multiplied by this 9 and this 9, so I need to put a 0 for the first 9 and a 0 for the second 9, and now I can multiply by the 4. 4 times 5 is 20. 4 times 7 is 7, 14, 21, 28, 29, 30. And 4 times 3 is 12, and 12 plus 3 is 15. And we add this up. It's 5, 12, 11, 6, 7, 8, and 1. Whew, that was a lot. Okay, now we've got to figure out where we put our decimal, right? So we're going to take and we're going to move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have 3 places behind the decimal point here, 2 places here. So that's 5 altogether. So we start at the end and we move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So now it's money, right? So if it's money, this would be $1.87. We can't pay less than a penny. So for 3/8, it's going to be $1.87. Okay. All right. So let's look at the next one. It says there are 15 math workbooks on a 3-foot shelf. The workbooks are 3/4 inches thick. How many inches of the shelf do the workbooks take up? Okay, well, the first thing I notice, let's see, there are 15 math workbooks, so I'm going to write that big, 15. And then on a 3-foot shelf, the workbooks are 3/4 inch thick. Okay, so they're 3/4 inches thick. How many inches of the shelf do the workbooks take up? So I wonder about that 3-foot shelf. Is that going to make a difference? All right, so let's just kind of draw a picture of it, right? So here's my shelf. That's 3 foot. The workbooks are 3/4 inch. So like if that's a workbook, right? It would be 3/4 inch. And there's 15 of them. So I don't want to draw 15, but right? So let's just pretend, right? So there would be 15 workbooks, and each one would be 3/4 inch, and there would be 15 workbooks. Okay, so let me read it again. So there are 15 math workbooks on the 3-foot shelf. The workbooks are 3/4 inch thick. How many inches of the shelf do the workbooks take up? Okay, so I just need to know this, right? Well, how many inches is this? So there's 15 of them. I know I didn't draw 15, just pretend. And each one is 3/4. So 3/4, 3/4, 3/4, 3/4. So that 3/4 is repeating 15 times. So we're going to say 3/4 times 15. All right, you can pause the video and go ahead and do that. And so 3/4 times 15 over 1. Unfortunately, we cannot simplify. 4 and 15 do not simplify, so we're going to have to multiply straight across. So 15 times 3 is 45. 4 times 1 is 4. And then we simplify that. So 45 divided by 4. Bring down my 5. 4 goes into 5 once. Your remainder becomes your numerator and your denominator stays the same. So it'll be 11 and 1/4 inches. All right, last question. It says a broken pipe was leaking 1 2/3 gallons of water per minute. Okay, so just that, right? That gets me thinking. First minute is 1 2/3. The second minute is 1 2/3 gallon. The third minute, right? 1 2/3 gallons of water per minute. All right. If Mr. Wrench, that's a funny name. If it took Mr. Wrench 10.5 minutes to stop the leak, how much water was wasted? Okay, so it's 1 2/3 gallons per minute. So 1 2/3 for the first minute, 1 2/3 for the second minute, 1 2/3 for the third minute. So that 1 2/3 is repeating for 10.5 minutes. So that means we're going to multiply that. All right, so 1 2/3 times 10.5. So go ahead, pause the video and work that out. Remember, you have to make those fractions first. All right, so we're going to do Texas. Okay, so we're going to say 3 times 1 is 3 plus 2 is 5. So that's going to be 5/3. And then 10 times 2 is 20 plus 1 is 21. So it'll be 21 halves. And I look to see, can I simplify? And yes, 3 times 7 is 21, so I'm going to simplify by 3. I'm going to divide the 21 and the 3 by 3. So 3 divided by 3 is 1, and 21 divided by 3 is 7. Can't do your 5 and 2, so I'm just going to multiply straight across. 5 times 7 is 35. 1 times 2 is 2. It's improper, so I'm going to say 35. I'm going to do neato. 35 divided by 2 goes once. 7. 1 left over, that becomes my remainder, and my denominator stays the same. So 17.5 gallons were wasted in that 10.5 minutes. Okay, so these questions were all multiplication. They were all where something was repeating a certain number of times. And so normal multiplication problems just with fractions. Okay, in the next video, we're going to look at some multiplication problems where it's just a little different.